This is another short excerpt from my upcoming book entitled If I Weren't Black, I Would Join the Klan. As with every Sunday, the Louise Williams Morning Gospel show that aired on WDAS radio in Philadelphia could be heard throughout the house. But something just didn't feel right. I actually panicked. I jumped out of bed and shook my brother, who was sound asleep in the single-tier bunk bed on the other side of the room. My brother jumped up. The first thing that he did was look at the poster. I guess we both used the poster in the sun as a way of gauging time after we had heard Mom's voice in the morning. I whispered in my brother's ear, "Did Mom tell us to get up?" I didn't hear her. My brother shook his head no. We stared at the door like horror movie teens waiting for a sadistic axe murderer to come busting through it. We heard our mother's footsteps coming down the hall. We began to brace ourselves as the steps began to get louder. Finally, they stopped at our door. My mother knocked 2 times, turned the doorknob, and poked her head into our room. "Are y'all going to church with me? If not, make sure this house is cleaned up by the time I get back. And don't eat up everything in the house," she said in a voice not any different than her wake-up voice. Now you're probably thinking that this change of heart had something to do with my father's unexpected visit. But the truth is, my father made quite a few unexpected Saturday visits, as well as Friday visits that lasted until Sunday. But we never ever deviated from our Sunday routine. My mother looked at us as waiting for a response. Although my brother was older than me, I was the one with the mouth. I had to think quickly. I wondered if my mother was toying with us. I couldn't see the rest of her body through the door, which evoked this vision of her coming through that door with the umbrella, wielding it like Bruce Lee with nunchucks, taking out everything and everybody in sight. I had to try it. I had to see just how far these youngest child privileges could go. I let out a barely audible reply to my mother's statement and possible rhetorical question. "Okay, Mom," I said timidly. All the while, the vision of her drop kicking me and bashing my head in with nunchucks remained in the backdrop of my mind. I couldn't read the look that she gave my brother, but I know that it wasn't an approving look. She closed the door and walked down to my sister's room. It's not that the house was so big, it's just that my brother and I were probably in such a shock that we couldn't hear what my mother had to say to my sister while standing outside of her room. My brother and I continued to stare at each other in disbelief, waiting for my mother to come back to her senses and return with a vengeance. I sat on the side of my brother's bed, still and silent, for what seemed like an eternity. The 3 familiar horn blasts from the taxicab outside was a confirmation that Mom truly had given us something that we have never been in possession of. Something subtle, yet life-changing. Something children are given without warning, without preparation, and in a lot of instances, without careful consideration. Something that if placed in the wrong hands, on the wrong mind, not given limits to or boundaries, can be very dangerous. Something that if given prematurely could open doors to degraded accountability, disobedience, and subsequent rebellion. My mother had given us options. The option to deviate from the traditional rules of the house.